Imagine a high-profile lawsuit collapsing in mere seconds. What happens when a single witness shatters an entire case? In this courtroom showdown, tension, strategy, and unexpected twists collide as Jasmine Crockett turns what was supposed to be a devastating attack into a masterclass of calm authority. Stay tuned. You won't believe how quickly everything fell apart. The morning sun filtered through the towering windows of the Manhattan courthouse, casting long shadows across the marble floors. The tension inside room 37 was palpable, a mixture of anticipation and disbelief. Journalists jostled for the best angle, their cameras pointed at the polished wooden benches where the key players would soon take their seats. On one side sat Melania Trump, poised yet visibly tense, her legal team quietly reviewing notes. Across from her, Jasmine Crockett, composed and confident, arranged her papers with meticulous care, her demeanor calm but alert, as if she already knew the storm that was about to hit. The lawsuit itself had been the subject of whispers, online speculation, and viral commentary for weeks. Melania's legal team had filed what they described as a high-stakes defamation suit, claiming that Crockett's actions or statements had caused severe personal and reputational harm, while most of the public had assumed this would be a long, drawn-out legal battle. Few could have predicted just how quickly the courtroom drama would escalate, or how dramatically it would unfold. As the judge entered the room, the murmur of conversation faded into silence. His gavel struck once, a crisp sound that seemed to command attention, and the trial officially began. The judge's eyes scanned the room, noting the energy, the palpable anticipation, and the subtle but significant tension between the two sides. He leaned forward slightly and asked for opening statements. Melania's lead attorney rose, voice steady, rehearsed. He detailed the alleged slights, the perceived damage to reputation, and the emotional toll the events had taken. He laid out the narrative with precision, emphasizing credibility, documentation, and the need for justice. While his words were methodical, the courtroom could sense the pressure behind them, the expectation that the case would unfold in dramatic fashion over weeks or months. Then it was Crockett's turn. Jasmine stood, adjusted her jacket, and began with a measured voice that carried authority without aggression. She didn't attempt to inflame the room or ridicule the claims. Instead, she methodically challenged the foundation of the suit. She highlighted inconsistencies in the filings, questioned the legitimacy of certain evidence, and subtly reminded everyone present that courts were not stages for spectacle. They were arenas for fact, law, and reason. Her approach was calm but assertive, giving the impression of someone who had not only prepared for every eventuality, but had also anticipated the courtroom theatrics that often accompany high-profile cases. As the session progressed, the first witness was called. The courtroom leaned in, waiting to hear testimony that would, according to Melania's team, solidify the case. The witness, someone who had been carefully selected to support the claims, took the stand with a mixture of nervousness and confidence. What happened next would stun everyone. In the span of seconds, this individual's testimony took a turn no one expected. The witness began to speak, and within moments, it was clear that the information they provided did not align with the narrative Melania's team had presented. Facts contradicted claims. Dates didn't match. The supposed evidence was questioned on technical grounds. A ripple of murmurs ran through the courtroom. Reporters instinctively reached for their cameras and phones, capturing the expressions of shock, disbelief, and rising tension. Even seasoned legal analysts, watching from the back, were forced to pause and reconsider what they thought would be a straightforward proceeding. Crockett's team remained poised, quietly confident that their meticulous preparation would soon bear fruit. Observers in the courtroom noted the subtle satisfaction in her expression, not arrogance, but the quiet validation of having anticipated every possible move. every potential disruption and every dramatic twist that might have been thrown her way. The way she handled cross-examinations, her calm demeanor, and her ability to turn seemingly minor details into major leverage points created a stark contrast with the flustered energy emanating from the plaintiff's side. By now, the courtroom atmosphere had shifted. What had been a tense but orderly environment was now charged with energy, a mix of anticipation and shock. Every word from the witness carried weight, and each new inconsistency in testimony further undermined the credibility of the claim. Observers would later describe this segment as 9 seconds that felt like 9 hours. A fleeting moment that seemed to compress the drama of an entire trial into a few explosive beats. Even the judge, known for his measured patience, leaned forward, squinting at the witness, adjusting his glasses and carefully noting the unraveling sequence. It was clear that something extraordinary was happening, a legal spectacle that defied expectation. Delivered not through theatrics or shouting, but through precision, truth, and an unshakable calmness under pressure outside the courtroom. Social media chatter began to escalate, although few understood the gravity in real time. Clips of the witness's testimony, combined with the shocked expressions of the legal teams, began circulating almost immediately. Analysts debated the implications. Could a lawsuit really disintegrate in less than 10 seconds? How did such rapid exposure of contradictions undermine a case that had seemed so carefully constructed? Meanwhile, reporters scribbled notes, capturing not just the facts, but the tone, the pacing, and the unexpected shifts in control. What was clear to anyone observing closely was that Crockett's preparation had transformed the proceedings. She didn't rely on theatrics. She relied on strategy, focus, and the ability to seize critical moments as they unfolded. The courtroom had barely settled after the shock of the witness's explosive testimony when murmurs began to ripple through the gallery. Legal observers, reporters, and even Melania Trump's own team were left scrambling to recalibrate their understanding of the case. What was supposed to be a carefully orchestrated lawsuit now teetered on the edge of chaos. Every person present felt the weight of the moment. A courtroom that expected weeks of deliberation was now experiencing a spectacle, compressed into mere seconds. Jasmine Crockett, seated confidently across from the plaintiff, kept her composure. Her eyes tracked the witness carefully, noting every subtle hesitation, every shift in phrasing. To the casual observer, she appeared calm and almost serene, but behind that poise was an intense focus. Crockett had anticipated potential pitfalls, had studied every document, and had prepared for every conceivable curveball. This was not luck. This was strategy. And now, the payoff was unfolding in real time. The witness, meanwhile, seemed unaware of the impact of their words. They stumbled over dates, misquoted evidence, and contradicted prior statements that had been used to justify the lawsuit. Melania's legal team attempted to intervene, whispering and gesturing from the table, but the damage was done. The courtroom's atmosphere had shifted dramatically. What had been tension and anticipation transformed into confusion, disbelief, and rising anxiety. The judge, maintaining his authority but visibly intrigued, leaned forward to interject. He asked pointed questions, seeking clarity from the witness and attempting to untangle the contradictions. Each question revealed further inconsistencies, and with every answer, the credibility of the plaintiff's case diminished. It was becoming increasingly evident that the legal strategy, no matter how meticulously planned, had collapsed under the pressure of truth as the courtroom drama unfolded. Reporters began to take notes at a frantic pace. Social media feeds lit up with commentary, speculations, and snippets of the testimony. Clips of the witnesses' missteps were already circulating online, sparking immediate debates among political analysts and legal commentators alike. The spectacle was not merely about the lawsuit. It had become a public event, a viral moment in which strategy, preparation, and calm authority triumphed over impulsive theatrics. Crockett's attorneys quietly reviewed their notes, occasionally exchanging subtle nods. They had expected this moment and had structured their cross-examination accordingly. Each inconsistency in the witness's testimony offered a new opportunity to reinforce Crockett's defense, highlight the lack of evidence, and subtly underscore the flaws in Melanian's narrative. It was a masterclass in courtroom strategy, delivered without raising the voice, without theatrics, and without unnecessary dramatics, yet every eye in the room was riveted. Meanwhile, the gallery of onlookers whispered among themselves. Some gasped, some shook their heads in disbelief, and others quietly noted the poise and precision of Crockett's responses. Even members of the plaintiff's legal team began to exhibit visible frustration. Papers were shuffled hastily, notes were scribbled in a flurry, and subtle murmurs of confusion betrayed their unraveling confidence. Amid the unfolding chaos, Crockett seized the moment. She leaned forward, asked the witness a precise, calm question that illuminated a critical contradiction, and then paused, giving the courtroom a beat to absorb the impact. The effect was instantaneous. Gasps filled the air, whispers spread across the gallery, and reporters instinctively raised cameras, capturing the stunned expressions of those who had expected control but now faced collapse. It was in this moment that the true power of strategy became evident. Crockett's preparation had allowed her to turn a single misstep by the witness into a cascading series of advantages. Questions that might have seemed minor were leveraged to expose the fragility of the case, highlight the absence of clear evidence, and subtly erode public perception of the lawsuit. Each pause, each measured phrase, and each deliberate question was crafted to maximize impact. A combination of legal expertise, psychological awareness, and courtroom experience. Outside the courtroom, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Social media platforms lit up as users shared clips, commentary, and rapid analysis of the unfolding events. Headlines began appearing within minutes. Courtroom chaos. Jasmine Crockett stuns Trump's case. Witness collapses case in seconds. 9 seconds that shattered a lawsuit. The story spread like wildfire, capturing national attention and transforming what had been expected as a procedural legal matter into a viral political and media event as the session progressed. Additional witnesses were called, but the momentum had already shifted decisively. Each new testimony was colored by the earlier missteps, and even the most neutral observers could see the trajectory of the case tilting away from the plaintiff. Melanian's team attempted to regain control, but the cracks had become visible, and the courtroom, once a space of formal procedure, now pulsed with tension, intrigue, and dramatic revelation. The courtroom's energy had shifted completely. Where tension had once hung like a dense fog, now an air of disbelief and urgency dominated every corner of the room. Reporters scribbled furiously, cameras captured every subtle reaction, and Melania and Trump's legal team huddled together, trying to salvage the remnants of what had once seemed a strong, well-prepared case. Their confidence was visibly shaken. Crockett, on the other hand, remained composed, her poise unshaken. Each glance, each adjustment of papers, each controlled movement seemed to communicate the same unspoken message. Clarity, preparation, and precision prevail over panic and overconfidence. She had not just anticipated the rapid collapse of the first witness testimony. She had positioned herself to capitalize on it fully as the next phase of the trial began. The focus shifted to the core evidence Melanian's team had hoped would carry their case. A series of documents, emails, and testimony from staff members were presented. On paper, these appeared strong, compelling even. Yet, as Crockett reviewed each piece, she noted inconsistencies, misstatements, and gaps that could be exploited. Her questions were measured, deliberate, and pointed, peeling back layers of narrative like a surgeon, removing successive layers of tissue to reveal the truth beneath. The courtroom audience could sense the shift in momentum. What had started as a potentially sensational case for Melania and Trump had transformed into a demonstration of Crockett's strategic mastery. Observers whispered, exchanged glances, and some even leaned forward, captivated by the unfolding spectacle. This was not simply about legal skill. It was about control over narrative, perception, and influence in the room. Every observer, from reporters to court staff, was now acutely aware of the balance of power. One particularly striking moment occurred when a staff member, previously aligned with the plaintiff, took the stand. The individual's testimony was meant to reinforce Melania's claims. Yet, under Crockett's careful questioning, it quickly backfired. A seemingly minor discrepancy in recollection became a focal point. Crockett's calm, analytical approach revealed that the staffer's memory contradicted earlier statements, undermining the credibility of the broader case. The courtroom gasped in unison. Even seasoned journalists murmured in astonishment. As this testimony unraveled, whispers began circulating about the implications beyond the immediate trial. Could this rapid disintegration of evidence signal deeper flaws in the case's foundation? Analysts speculated, while social media users debated the authenticity and credibility of the filings. Clips from the courtroom began trending online, highlighting moments where Crockett's precision dismantled the opposition effortlessly, earning admiration and praise from observers across political lines. Melania Trump's own demeanor began to reflect the mounting pressure. Her team's once calculated approach now appeared reactive, as they scrambled to explain inconsistencies and justify their strategy. The contrast between the two sides could not have been starker. One composed, prepared, and calm. The other increasingly frazzled, defensive, and visibly rattled by the rapid unraveling as the cross-examination intensified. Crockett leveraged each new detail to expose additional gaps. Emails previously considered conclusive were dissected. Timelines were clarified, and alleged statements were recontextualized. Each revelation added weight to the growing perception that the case was collapsing under its own inconsistencies. It was a masterclass in courtroom strategy, turning minor errors into decisive advantages, maintaining narrative control, and systematically dismantling an opponent's claims without ever raising one's voice. The judge, known for his impartiality and measured patience, interjected only when necessary. Each question he posed seemed designed to clarify points for the record. But it also inadvertently highlighted the weaknesses in Melania's case. Observers noted that even the judge's calm demeanor could not mask the perceptible shift in momentum, a subtle acknowledgement that the scales were tipping decisively in favor of Crockett by mid-afternoon. The atmosphere was electric. The courtroom had transformed into a living illustration of strategy and preparation, prevailing over assumption and overconfidence. Journalists captured not only the unfolding events, but also the emotional undertones, the rising panic on one side and the quiet, methodical confidence on the other. Social media was ablaze with commentary, clips, and instant analysis, amplifying the impact far beyond the courthouse walls. Crockett's team, meanwhile, maintained their focus. They guided the witness testimony, referenced evidence, and connected the dots in real time, ensuring that each point made by the opposing side only reinforced their overarching narrative. The strategy was clear: expose weaknesses decisively, maintain control, and leave no room for doubt in the minds of observers. The courtroom fell into a tense silence as the final witness was called. Every eye in the room was trained on the proceedings, anticipating the last chapter of what had already become a national spectacle. The momentum, unmistakably in Jasmine Crockett's favor, now approached its apex. What had begun as a high-profile lawsuit aimed at challenging Crockett's credibility now teetered on collapse, and everyone present sensed the impending climax. The final witness. a consultant previously involved in managing communications for Melania and Trump's legal team, took the stand with a sense of urgency. Their testimony was meant to shore up the case's final argument, a last-ditch attempt to assert legitimacy and counter the growing narrative that the lawsuit lacked substance. Yet, under Crockett's calm and methodical questioning, the witness began to falter. Minor contradictions, previously overlooked, now stood out like glaring discrepancies under the courtroom's sharp scrutiny. Crockett's approach was deliberate. She asked targeted questions, weaving together prior testimony, documentary evidence, and observable inconsistencies. Each question subtly highlighted errors without ever appearing confrontational. Her tone remained measured, her expressions neutral, but the effect on the witness and the gallery was electric. It became increasingly clear that the lawsuit's foundation had cracked, leaving the plaintiff with almost nothing to support the high-stakes claims that had made headlines. Observers in the gallery began murmuring, exchanging looks that combined shock, intrigue, and admiration. Reporters frantically scribbled notes, capturing every pause, every hesitation, and every subtle acknowledgement of contradiction. Social media feeds began filling with real-time reactions. Clips of the witness struggling under Crockett's questioning spread rapidly online, amplifying the spectacle far beyond the courtroom walls. As the examination continued, the final witness admitted 2 errors in recollection and oversight in documentation, effectively nullifying critical pieces of the plaintiff's argument. The judge, maintaining professional composure, allowed the clarifications to unfold fully, emphasizing the importance of accuracy and credibility. Yet the courtroom audience, and indeed the wider public following the story online, recognized the symbolic moment of collapse, what was meant to be a dramatic courtroom victory for Melania. Trump had disintegrated almost entirely within seconds. Crockett's demeanor remained steady throughout. Her calm, evidence-driven approach contrasted sharply with the increasingly defensive reactions of the plaintiff's team. Every misstep was met with measured questioning, reinforcing the narrative that preparation, poise, and strategic thinking were paramount. By the time closing arguments were presented, it was apparent to all observers that the case had lost its momentum. The plaintiff's legal strategy, reliant on selective evidence and witness credibility, had been dismantled systematically as the judge prepared to adjourn. The room was a mixture of stunned silence and subdued commentary. For Melania and Trump's team, the implications were immediate and significant. A high-profile lawsuit had collapsed in front of the nation, raising questions about planning, execution, and the reliability of the evidence. Meanwhile, Crockett's victory was both procedural and symbolic. She had not only defended her position, but had demonstrated the decisive power of preparation, analytical rigor, and composure under pressure. The aftermath extended far beyond the courtroom. Media outlets dissected the rapid collapse. Social media users debated each detail, and political commentators highlighted the implications for public perception, legal strategy, and narrative control. Crockett's handling of the case became a textbook example of effective legal strategy and strategic communication in the modern political and media environment. For viewers and observers, the story offered several key takeaways. Preparation trumps impulse. Crockett's success illustrated that meticulous preparation, careful review of evidence, and anticipation of missteps could decisively influence outcomes. Authority matters in high-stakes environments. Measured composure often shifts the balance more effectively than loud or aggressive tactics. Public perception is critical, even in a legal setting. Narrative control and strategic questioning can influence how a case is perceived beyond the courtroom. Small errors have outsized effects. The breakdown of a single witness's testimony can dramatically alter the trajectory of a case, demonstrating how fragile complex narratives can be. By the conclusion of the trial, the courtroom had witnessed a dramatic collapse of a high-profile lawsuit in a matter of minutes. underscoring the unpredictable nature of legal and political confrontations. Crockett's performance, measured yet precise, stood as a defining moment, one that reshaped public discourse, captured national attention, and provided a compelling example of how strategy, evidence, and composure can dominate even the most explosive challenges. As the gavel finally fell, the courtroom erupted in muted applause and relieved whispers. The narrative was clear. What had been intended as a high-stakes attack had backfired completely, cementing Crockett's reputation as a skilled, strategic, and unflappable figure in both the legal and political arenas. The story would continue to be dissected, analyzed, and shared. But the result was undeniable. In just a few tense moments, meticulous preparation had decisively won the day.